I cannot believe that this is actually happening. Google are threatening to remove Google search from Australia. Why? Let's dive into this really strange piece of news that happened last week. What happened is the Australian government is looking to introduce a law that requires Google to pay the newspaper industry, the journalists, the likes of all the newspapers that are digital nowadays, to pay them every time the search result comes up. And let's look at it at both sides of the story. So the Australian government is saying, in order to preserve democracy, we need a healthy newspaper outlets, we need healthy news, and no one, far less people consume news now compared to before. Now Twitter, Facebook, Google, they became the news outlet. If there is anything happening in the world, that's how we would know. We would open up Instagram, or we would open up Twitter, or we'd just do a Google search and we'd find out what is happening. So the newspapers, the newspaper websites, they survive on ads, and no one pays for ads on newspaper websites anymore because, well, news shows up somewhere else. And because these companies are very massive and they control everything now, from entertainment to Google search, Google Maps, Google Android, everything. So the government is trying to require Google to pay them when they use their website to show the results, because now when you Google any piece of news, you can understand what is going on without even clicking on the link. When you click on the link, there is a chance that you see advertisements, and that's how the websites are paid. So many websites have introduced a paywall system, so you would only be able to read the article if you pay. And maybe it works for very famous newspapers like the New York Times or other newspaper outlets that are very famous and people are willing to pay. But if you are a local newspaper or a local journalist, there is no one supporting you. Just a quick search would never give you your credit. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to force Google to pay for every single time they show the search, for a fee that will be negotiated in the future. And Google are not happy about that, as you would be if you were Google, because that would mean you're starting a trend. Maybe everywhere does this now. We have to pay everyone. And this is very strange for me, because in one way, you would say, yes, they are devouring an industry and this industry needs to survive. But in another sense, this happens all the time. And if you start regulating the internet this way, where would you stop? You would go to the movie industry and tell Netflix to stop. Would you go to Spotify and tell them to stop? Would you go to YouTube and tell them to stop? And then, where does it end? And I personally don't know where I land in this story, but it's a very interesting one. Imagine a world where Google would be banned from your country. What search engine would you use? What is cited here in this article by the BBC is they would have to use the alternatives, which are Microsoft's Bing and Yahoo Search. I mean, who uses Yahoo Search anymore? But that's a possibility. And the Australians themselves are worried that this could mean that Google would, if this ban happens, would then remove other features like Gmail, Google Maps, YouTube. And that's a little bit scary, because in this sense, you're removing an essential. And the government is saying, yes, it is an essential, but they're so powerful, they don't pay anyone. All they get is their profit. And they have some figures saying that local newspapers are going out of business because Google are eating them up. So very strange debate. You tell me, if it's your country, if you live in Australia, or you live in a country where they just remove Google, you think it will be the same? tough to say. I mean, would you just go and use some other mapping platform and another Google search and another, a search engine? No, very strange. So that's our first story, a very, very strange story. And our second story is Apple. We said this in the last video. The next iPhone could see the return of Touch ID. They have brought back Touch ID, the fingerprint scanning technology, back with their iPad Air. And this report by The Verge is saying that Apple in 2021 will reportedly bring back the SD card slot for the MacBook Pros. When I meet someone and they see me talk so passionately about Apple and how much I love my iPhone, they always assume that I have a MacBook, which I don't. You see, for me, when I use my computer, I need to use it for everything. I need to use it for video editing, sometimes photo editing, importing stuff from my laptop, from my other laptops, from my phone, from my camera, and so on. So I need ports. And what Apple does is, first of all, they sell you very expensive laptops, and then you have to buy a million accessories to get access with these dongles, and it just is not attractive to me, at least. So now this report is saying they are going to bring back an SD card slot. Another report previously said that they will bring back the MagSafe connector, add more ports. And here you're saying, oh, now they have a more powerful CPU that they design. They're bringing back features that people love. Maybe Apple is, planning something very strong for their laptop lineup, and maybe they regain the magic that they might have lost. This video is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, but this is a very interesting article by the BBC again that I came across, and it made me think. And now hopefully I'll make you think just a little bit. So there's this woman. Her name is Christina Colmer McHugh. She created this wristband that tells your boss if you are unhappy. So if you have the time, go check it out. This article by the BBC. So what is this? So the original story is she realized that her daughter is not doing okay in school. So she made this bracelet with two buttons, a blue button and a yellow button. If she's happy, she would click the yellow button, and if she's sad, she would click the blue button. And using that, she would know if her daughter is doing well or doing not so well. Sweet idea, to be honest. You know if your loved one in school, your tiny offspring, is enjoying their time or not, and you could have an idea of their mental state just by clicking these buttons and without even communicating directly using words. I found that to be interesting. So now they are going to experiment with companies, giving these bracelets to workers, to employees, in a way to gauge how happy or unhappy the mental well-being of your employees if they are working from home. Quick story, I worked from home last year. I did a placement, I paused my studies, and I worked for a year. And the pandemic happened in the middle of it, and I worked from home. And it was very strange, the feeling of all of a sudden you're home. And okay, this is the interesting part. This article is saying that this tries to mimic how real life works. So your boss, who's in charge of you, usually would come along and see if you're okay or not. This is not possible anymore. So maybe this is not the thing. Employees won't just be clicking around if they're unhappy, but it just provides the idea of, if this is our new normal, how do we make it better? And one thing this article mentions is people are not in a very positive mental well-being because there is no distinction between work and home anymore. And this article mentioned that there is new features are introduced, like a virtual commute that would take the last 30 minutes of your shift or your working day, and it would ask you, what did you accomplish today? what are you planning to do at home, and it will just ease you off that work mindset. Because the argument here is when you're driving or, commuting, going to work, that 30, 40 minutes it takes, it refreshes your minds. It prepares you mentally to say, okay, now you're moving from home, literally moving from home to work. And the opposite is also true. So it will wind you down, have your mental well-being, your brain says, okay, I'm now finishing work and going home. Instead of, clicking off, and then now you're home, and then you'll be like, what is home and what is work? It's very, very interesting. And it says that with this pandemic, and I agree completely, whether it's studies or work, our well-being in terms of mental health has really taken a hit, because now we don't socialize anymore. Everything has been stripped from normalcy. And this is a really cool idea if there was a way to make things more seamless, more easy in transitioning from the previous life that we loved to this life. But in any case, I hope you have a fantastic week. You stay healthy and you stay sane. Goodbye.